Hello and welcome to another episode of the CUFI Weekly, and this week I want to talk about the dramatic hostage rescue that took place this weekend, where the Israeli Special Forces were able to rescue 4 of the hostages alive and bring them home to Israel. Of course, this news was greeted with much jubilation in Israel and by Israeli and Jewish communities all over the world. It was a real bright spot in what has been such a grueling and traumatic time since October 7th. But there are some implications of this rescue that I wanted to talk about, and there are a number of facets. So the first is where the hostages were rescued from. Both groups of hostages, the 3 men and the 1 female, Noah Argamani, were being held with families. In fact, the 3 men were being held by a doctor and a journalist. Yes, you heard that right. A doctor and a journalist. And essentially were being kept in horrendous conditions. New reports which are emerging say that they were being forced to live as Muslims. They were being forced to pray 5 times a day. Reports of Noah's captivity say that she was being forced to cook and clean. Now my question is this though. And it's not an if, because this is what happened. Hostages were being held by a doctor and a journalist. If they can hold hostages, isn't it plausible that Hamas is using hospitals, that Hamas is using schools, that maybe Hamas isn't playing by the normal rules of combat or warfare, that maybe Hamas is happy to embed themselves in civilians and use civilians to hide behind? Because the evidence is there. No matter how much some of these activists or Western journalists or even politicians seem to make excuses for Hamas's abhorrent behavior and look to blame it on the IDF, the evidence continues to show what Hamas is about. The Nazi Party ruled Germany for less than 15 years in total, from the moment that Hitler became Chancellor to the end of the Second World War. And in that time, the Nazis, through their indoctrination, through their propaganda, through their programs for the young, managed to turn what was considered as Europe's intellectual society into a society which was throwing babies into fires, which was walking the elderly into gas chambers, and saw this as a good thing. So wouldn't you say it's plausible that Hamas, who have existed since the 1980s, who have been in control of Gaza for almost 20 years, control every aspect of that society, that maybe, just maybe, it has been able to indoctrinate and brainwash people similarly? That people are happy to let Hamas fighters use their homes, or are happy to keep Israelis in their homes because they hate Jews. Because that essentially is the core of Hamas's ideology. Why did this operation happen? Because Hamas and its allies and ordinary people from Gaza, which is documented, came into Israel and massacred people, committed atrocities, and took Israelis and others back into Gaza as hostages. That's why the operation happened. Look, don't keep hostages and the IDF won't kick down your door to bring them home. It's a very simple fact. Jew hatred in Gaza is an epidemic. And while people may be unhappy with Hamas, while they may be suffering because of Hamas and angry at Hamas in this moment, the Jew hatred is ingrained. This is not a case of Hamas will no longer exist and people will be singing Kumbaya at the border. We have to deal with the realities of the region. Of course, I believe it can change. Of course, I have hope for the future, but we have to deal with the realities of what we're talking about right now. And that is why, in this situation, nobody has the ability to remain silent. We all must speak up. Because this is the country that our children are going to inherit. One where people openly support terrorism. Where people openly call for the destruction of our friend and ally Israel. Where people openly intimidate and attack our Jewish brothers and sisters. Ultimately, it's on us. If we want a better tomorrow, it starts with us. And if you haven't yet, it starts today. This is Kasim Hafeez for the CUFI Weekly. For Zion's sake, do not remain silent.
Thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe so you get a notification every time a new episode hits. And if you want to check out some of our previous episodes, and we've got some really good ones, click on one of the thumbnails and that will take you right there. And finally, if you want to know more about CUFI and the work we do, go to cufi.org to check out all the resources we have available free to you.